You were the lawyer for Bruce and Denise Morcombe for the Morcombe case.
Yep.
Good evening. On Sunday afternoon, a schoolboy set out to buy Christmas presents for his family. 13-year-old Daniel Morcombe hasn't been seen since.
Not knowing where he was and what happened was awful.
This is the report. That is the original report that has been missing near on 2 decades.
Jesus.
Arrogant prick. All I got was, what would you know?
The Morcombe file, missing for 19 years. This document could have changed history.
8 years, he was let off the hook.
Brett Cowan could have been arrested within
2 weeks.
Also tonight.
I'm Jim Jeffries, your favourite comedian.
Australia's bad boy of comedy.
You look like...
I have to talk about having sex with my wife on stage.
You don't have to talk about it.
But I better step this up again.
Hello.
Oh, hello, husband.
Meet the woman who tamed a wild beast.
Oh, God.
Hi, I'm Jim Jeffries. Liam Bartlett came over to my house unannounced. So I'm going to be on Spotlight.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight. When 13-year-old Daniel Morcombe was snatched from a Sunshine Coast bus stop in December 2003, it triggered one of the biggest manhunts in Australian history. But it would be 8 long years before Daniel's abductor was caught. 8 years of agony for his parents. Tonight, we reveal the heartbreaking truth. Their son's depraved killer should have been caught within the first 2 weeks. Here's Denham Hitchcock's explosive investigation.
On the 19th of December 1989, Daniel Morcombe was born. Twin brother to Brad, brother to Dean, the loved son of Bruce and Denise.
I remember Daniel's first steps. I remember Daniel's first day of school.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. Daniel went to catch a bus to the shop, but the bus was running late. When it passed, the driver and passengers report seeing Daniel and an unidentified man. Minutes later, he and the man were gone.
Oh, we knew it was serious.
Within an hour. Oh, it was awful. I mean, we drove to the plaza, we drove to the police station. The police told us to sit at home and just wait for Daniel. We sat home all night, pretty much just sat in the lounge room chair, just waiting for Daniel to walk through the front door, and that didn't happen.
th of December 2003, it's a Sunday. And at a bus stop under this overpass in Palmwood, an abduction would take place that would send a shiver down the spine of every parent. And it would start the largest criminal case in Queensland history. Operation Bravo Vista had near unlimited resources. But the key decisions, the crucial calls, were made by one man, the officer in charge, Detective Inspector Michael Condon.
We're looking for a male person, Caucasian, scruffy appearance, that was seen underneath the overpass where Daniel was last seen.
The detective inspector in charge of the case, Michael Condon, what did he tell you about the investigation?
Well, he told us very little. And when we would ask specific questions, how's it going, is there more information, you know, what's the timeline, he would be evasive.
Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Dave.
Condon wanted to check the alibis of every known paedophile in the area. So they called in the men who caught them for a living, Dennis Martin and his partner, Ken King.
We were checking upwards of 8, 10 a day.
Aren't they hopeless?
So on this list of known pedophiles in the area includes a name, Brett Peter Cowan.
Yes. He had history in Northern Territory, which was absolutely disgraceful. He had similar history in Queensland.
Hey, Brett, what's happening?
Daniel would have been within his target group, is what I'm trying to say.
You go and knock on his door. Tell me your initial impressions from the beginning.
First of all, we noticed he had a white four-wheel drive with a black snorkel.
Saw that in the driveway, on the way in?
Correct, yes. I said, I think we're on the money here, Ken, because a witness had said there was a white four-wheel drive with a black snorkel parked on the opposite side where Daniel Morcombe was.
He identified that vehicle had a half-sized air snorkel on the driver's side of the vehicle.
He was very confident. He was very confident.
But Dennis Martin saw something that an untrained eye might not have, something that immediately made him very suspicious.
What I did notice was that he was reasonably clean-shaven at the time. He was, his hair was groomed. And the reason I bring that up, there is a cycle. A lot of them will allow themselves their degradation of morality and their degradation of their cleanliness whilst they're getting into the pre-offending stage. And then after the offending, they're quite happy with themselves and they go back to their normal routine. They'll shave and shower and clean themselves up and act as if nothing's happened. And basically, that's what he did. And then I talked to his wife. I asked, well, does he look like this all the time? Oh, in the last couple of weeks, he's had a shave, he's had a haircut, and he's looking after himself.
So what about his alibi? You must have questioned him about the time and the day.
Yep. He said, look, I drove from my place down to Nambour.
Detectives Martin and King got back in their car and with a stopwatch running, they traced the exact route that Brett Cowan claims he took. What they found was 45 minutes of time that was completely unaccounted for.
Now, I asked him, I said, listen, did you happen to see a young boy at an underpass at Nambour? And he goes, no, I didn't. I said, mate, don't bullshit to me. I said, because I know what you are and who you are. I said, and I'm telling you now that somebody like this fellow that's gone missing is your type. You telling me that you didn't see him at all and you didn't look? And he said, I might have stopped and had a little look or kept going.
So at that point in time, did you think that you had your man?
It was him. Absolutely, 100%. He was, as far as I'm concerned, always has been, in my mind, the murderer of Daniel Morcombe. Always.
As certain as Martin and King were, they needed hard evidence. Before leaving his property, they did everything they could. Photographed Cowan on the spot, recorded their conversation with him, took photos of his car, the tyre pattern. They then wrote a detailed report recommending covert operations, along with the immediate seizure and examination of his car and computer. The report went to the Incident Response Team, led by Detective Sergeant Michael Condon. So to be clear about this, not only did you brief the whole incident room about this encounter that you had with Brett Cowan, you put all of this down in a report with all of these facts, all of these details.
Correct.
What was his reaction to the report that you and King tabled?
I said, look, he's your man. You've got to really consider him, you know. And all I got was, off, what would you know?
Brett Cowan is your man?
He's your man.
And he says,
off, what would you know?
What did you think at that time?
Just an arrogant prick.
At a later inquest, Condon would deny saying this. Because some of the crucial things that were never done with Brett Cowan, never seized his phone, never seized his computer.
No, I can't believe that they didn't do that.
Our home computers at the time...
They were taken straight away.
Yeah, they were seized, and they forensically checked those.
Because we had nothing to hide.
But they didn't take Brett Cowan's?
Did not take Cowan's.
This is only 2 weeks after Daniel went missing. You walked out of that man's house and you thought, he's the guy.
Correct.
But tragically, Detective Martin and King's suspicions weren't acted on. Their team instead was following a different lead.
A number of witnesses had seen this car.
A blue car belonging to another pedophile, which had broken down the day after Daniel disappeared. Cowan was dismissed as the probable suspect.
He was put aside because they were blinkered by this blue car.
If that takes you off the path, that's just not good enough. You need to say, well, we still haven't found him, so let's keep an open mind.
But Martin says Condon wouldn't listen and didn't act.
He got stuck on a blue car. Evidence is looking at you, staring at you in the face. Please at least put some resources onto this fellow.
Had your recommendations been followed, could Brett Cowan have been arrested for the disappearance of Daniel within the first month of him disappearing?
100%.
Brett Cowan had picked up Daniel by offering him a lift to the shopping centre. But instead, he drove him out here. He must have been terrified.
Look, anybody that's in the passenger seat with somebody they don't know in the driver's seat, heading into deeper bush, you just know you're in a lot of trouble. It would have been a terrible moment for him where he's probably thinking, what the hell am I in for when I'm down the end of this road?
I never got to molest him or anything like that. He panicked and I panicked and grabbed him around the throat, and before I knew it, he was dead.
Brett Cowan dragged Daniel Morcombe's body down through this thick scrub towards the water. He stripped him of his clothes, his shoes, threw them in the creek. And he left the 13-year-old's naked body, half covered under a tree. Then he got inside his car, drove home to his wife, like nothing ever happened. This is the car Brett Cowan drove, the same car Dennis Martin saw just days after when they were investigating the alibis of known pedophiles. Saw that in the driveway on the way in.
Correct, yes. I said, I think we're on the money here, Ken.
They had the killer on toast, but the police hierarchy under then Detective Sergeant Michael Condon ignored Martin and King. And the opportunity was missed again. 3 years later, another team interviewed Cowan.
Brett, can you just state your full name, thanks?
Brett Peter Cowan.
What's your date of birth, Brett?
18969.
Cowan even looked like one of the police sketches of the suspect and joked with detectives about it.
Have you seen the conflicts that have been released in relation to this?
Yeah.
You've seen them on TV?
Yeah.
Do you think you look anything like those conflicts?
Well, I saw one of them.
And what you told me here today being the truth?
Yes, it has.
If you had abducted Daniel, would you tell me?
Probably not.
No worries. We'll terminate
So,
the interview.
out the door he went. The killer walked free. The cop who led the investigation rose to assistant commissioner. And Daniel's parents were left living a perpetual nightmare. Can you give me a sense of what it was like for those 8 years?
I think every day I used to wake up and just wait for that phone call to come that maybe Daniel had been found or he was coming home. Not knowing where he was and what happened. It was awful.
There were some days that I would think, geez, I hope they survive.
You know, I kept all of his belongings and was waiting for him, even though we'd never be that 13-year-old boy. It's just what a mother does.
Did you come forward over those 8 years? Did you keep raising this?
I raised it at every opportunity I could.
After the break.
This is your reputation we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
Police! Stay there, Brett. Stay where you are.
Brett Cowan could have been arrested.
Yeah, within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I did.
got to make you livid.
After Daniel Morcombe was abducted, a crack team of detectives was called in to solve the case, and within days, one of them, Dennis Martin, was convinced he'd cracked it. Together with his partner, they pinpointed convicted child sex offender Brett Cowan as Daniel's abductor. Tragically, their warnings were ignored, and 8 years would pass before Cowan was finally caught.
There you go, bud.
It would take an elaborate undercover operation called the Mr. Big Sting to finally get a confession out of Cowan.
I'm told you've done the Daniel Morcombe murder.
Yeah, I did.
And then...
Police! Stay there, Brett. Stay there, mate. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Police. Brett Cowan, we're investigating the abduction and murder of Daniel Morcombe.
I'm under arrest for Daniel Morcombe's murder.
Good evening. One of Queensland's top cops has been accused of ignoring early information that Brett Peter Cowan was the prime suspect in the disappearance of Sunshine Coast teenager Daniel Morcombe.
2016.
Yep.
There's an inquest into the Morcombe case.
Yep.
What was the focus of the inquest?
The focus was always to find what hadn't been done.
So you turn up to this inquest, which is trying to find the reason why Brett Cowan was overlooked in the first place, and you say, we put it all in a report. Recommendations, evidence, the lot. They present to you what they say is your report, but it's not it.
That's correct. I was presented with a summarisation of what we'd written. Basically, they turned around and said, well, that's all we can find. So where are all the attachments? Where are the photographs from his tyre marks? Where are his photographs of his tattoos? Where's the tape recording of the interview we did? And where's our damn report?
It's a week where one of Queensland's top cops has taken a public hit, denying claims he ignored former officers who told him Brett Peter Cowan was the prime suspect.
It was an outrageous lie, and that officer committed perjury on oath.
This is your reputation we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
He accused you of an outrageous lie, of lying under oath. He accused you of perjury.
He accused me of perjury.
That officer committed perjury on oath.
Your reputation was ruined over this at that inquiry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They said that you're an out-and-out liar, that this was your report and that you lied that these recommendations never existed.
Absolutely.
And why would they do that? Why would they do that?
To cover it up. Absolutely. That they were incompetent.
That this was done to cover up the mistakes that were made.
Absolutely. And there can be no other inference drawn from that.
Dennis Martin has since retired from the police force. His career never fully recovered from the coronial investigation that labelled him a liar. And he was never able to find that detailed report he says he wrote on Brett Cowan. But then, recently, an unexpected breakthrough.
I had an old computer which I was transferring everything onto a big hard drive. And I lifted up my hard drive to plug in and get the old stuff off so I can throw the computer in the bin. And there was a few USBs. And on there was Op Vista. So I opened up Op Vista and here is the report.
The full report?
The full report, and that would have been the report that was taken off that computer, printed and given to them.
Is it too convenient that Dennis Martin found what he says is the real report only now? What I'd like you to look at is have a look at the metadata and see what date it's from, if it's been modified in any way.
Okay.
That's the file in question.
This tells you that this is the last time it's been modified.
So that report, you gave it to me on a USB, and I had it forensically tested by a computer tech.
This file has not been opened since 2003.
That is your full report. Now, that report was created on the 22nd of December 2003. That's the day after you spoke to Brett Cowan.
Correct.
The highlights that you see on that report is what was left out of the one that was shown at the inquest. Recommendations are as follows. Telecommunications intelligence should be used and collected. Interview Cowan. Seize and examine his car, home and clothing. All CCTV along the route should be collected. Covert methodology should be used. All persons interviewed, alibis verified. Past and present friends and family to be interviewed. His car should be matched to tyre prints, victimology, DNA swabs. Should be investigated as a suspect until proven otherwise. A team of investigators should be allocated to this suspect.
Correct. I couldn't be any more specific.
This is the information that they never saw. It's got to make you livid reading this report.
Well, this should make the coroner livid. These recommendations were enacted. Brett Peter Cowan would have been arrested for the murder of Daniel Morcombe.
Probably within the first month of Daniel disappearing.
Given this, absolutely.
Peter, I've got something to show you. This is the report. That is the original report that has been missing for near on 2 decades.
And what's the difference in the report?
Those highlights that you see there were not included in the shorter report that was presented at the inquest.
Jesus.
And how many of these recommendations were done?
None of them.
It's more than a couple of words.
Brett Cowan could have been arrested.
Yeah, within
for
2
taking
weeks.
Your son within weeks.
We believe that, yeah.
Cowan should be singularly investigated as a suspect until proven otherwise. It says it all, doesn't it?
Well, there's been a significant development in the case this past week.
The report does exist, did always exist.
The Morcombe family want answers. So too, Dennis Martin, the detective who solved Daniel's disappearance, only to be ignored and branded a liar. On Thursday, he took his evidence straight to the Queensland's Crime and Corruption Commission. He hopes that a proper investigation is carried out, not least to bring justice to Daniel and closure for his mum and dad, Denise and Bruce.
The empathy I have for Mr. and Mrs. Morcombe is incredible. They did not deserve anything of this. I think they should take recognition for what's in that report, and then I believe that the people that were responsible for providing a redacted version should come forward and apologise to me and say, you have provided the proofs that we required. So if they've actively done this, and if they have knowingly done it, I think that they should hold their head down and be disgusted if they find that there are further victims between 2003 and the incarceration date.